the record on the tape. And I would like to thank you everybody for joining us again for another series of Still in Touch from all our series that we did on the Zoom meetings. I would like to thank you for your support. First of all, it's very important to all of us. I think that without your support, the support that we receive on emails, on messages, everything, your participation here, it wouldn't be happening because without the audience, the people don't want to give a show. And I think for us all together to receive this kind of support from you, for me, for Sandy, and for Laszlo, this is very important, and I want to thank you very much for that. Don't forget, if you see this recording on YouTube, to subscribe to the channel and click like. This is another kind of support. Push the like button, or just destroy that like button many times. And this will give us all the support that we need.
Am I allowed to do that too?
You can try, I know you. Anyway, so tonight we're going to listen to a special presentation from Sandy. And Sandy, I will give you the stage immediately, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you everybody for coming in and listening again to me. Tonight's discussion is I pitched it deliberately not. We had some questions previously that some of the things that we talked about were only really relevant to the top level. And so what I propose to do this evening is to talk about things that maybe every referee should be able to do. And certainly the elite referees and the referee coaches and the referee delegates out there will know most of this stuff already. Let's imagine, however, that it may reaffirm all of the things that you already do, and maybe you think, oh, I do that, or I wish I did that. Oh, that's a new thing. So maybe there's a few things in here that maybe strike a chord with referees at all levels, and maybe there's one or two new things, I hope, but we'll see anyway. So there you see the headline: how volleyball referees make and sell decisions. And selling the decision is a great deal different from actually making the decision. A lot of us, when we made decisions, even if there was a correct decision, maybe one referee would make the same decision as you and get away with it, and everybody accepts, and you may do it and you don't get accepted. And there may be some small reasons for that we can maybe explore later. Roy, if you go to the next slide, you'll see what I mean. So it's pitched at every level and not at the elite. Okay, aspiring referees, pay attention, but there may be some things in here that don't suit your style. Don't worry about that. There's a lot of things in here that maybe you can actually use some of those things, and you pick and you choose and you decide, I'm going to use that one, I won't use that one, and the experienced referees will know, okay, I know that already, or well, I wouldn't do that, but that's up to you. Okay, next slide, Roy. So in our introduction, what I would say is that we're all under scrutiny. We're all under the microscope of TV. Everybody is looking. They have mobile phones, cell phones that can capture many things, and you're always being looked at, and that puts increasing pressure on us. Now, we heard from Ido only a week or so ago about the various stress aspects of refereeing and how we can actually get around those stressors and things. So that's something we need to be aware of. There are stressors, and there may be things that stress one referee more than another. Okay, if you click again, get everybody on side. We need to work with the teams, not against the teams, and we need to sell those decisions at every time we make a decision. Now, one of the things that we can say is that every time a referee operates. Every time a player touches the ball, even before a player touches the ball, even the referee is making decisions all the time. So thousands and thousands and thousands of very small decisions are being made throughout the 2 hours or whatever it is of the match. So what we need to be able to do is to make sure that when we make the decisions that count, that people accept those decisions and say, okay, I accept that, that's fair, move on. Click, please. So how do referees arrive at those decisions? The mechanics of making a decision are really quite complicated and really quite interesting as well. Ido talked last week about the psychology of things. My talk is mostly about mechanics of it rather than psychology, because I'm not a psychologist. And you will learn that, or you have learned that in the past, that I know very little about proper psychology. Okay, click. Right, so what do we need for good decision making? Knowledge of the rules. Now, if we pause there, okay, one of the crucial aspects, and you can go in to do all sorts of research on how we make decisions. And in every single sport, the knowledge of the rules is really fundamental. And that's one of the reasons why we spend so much time talking rules and understanding rules and understanding the reasons behind a rule being in place. Click. So what we need to be able to do is to access that knowledge quickly and then process it. And we process it in a controlled manner, and we process it and link it to the actual action that took place on the court. And when we're doing that, we're deciding if the action is a yes, or is it a no? Is it legal? Is it not legal? And having made that assessment, we then have to make a decision. Blow the whistle, not blow the whistle. Okay? That involves fast reactions. Now, the fast reactions are twofold. One is you've got the mechanics of actually making a signal, blowing a whistle. Okay, those are automatic things, and we'll come later on to how it relates to things like driving a car. But the fast reaction must also be taking the information that you see, processing it, and then making the link to the actual rule and deciding yes or no. So an event, it's a kind of hazard awareness, if you like. You see the setter coming from the back zone, therefore you know what happens if there's an overpass. You're anticipating the event that's taking place there. Beginner referees tend to react to just what they see, whereas an elite referee has already worked out, if this happens, this is my reaction. If that happens, there's a different reaction, okay? In both of those cases, we need to be able to look at the right place. But anyway, as I said, hazard awareness. And we recognize the events as a straight right or wrong. But to get to the straight right or wrong requires us to do many, many linkages within our brain. Okay. So there are, however, gray areas. And we need also to be aware of, I'm not sure, therefore I will not whistle. Okay. And because you're not whistling, very often you think, have I given away some of my control? Well, the answer is no, you haven't. If you recognize that you have made a conscious decision to actually let that go, then that's a decision that actually counts in your favor. Next one. And in order to do that, to actually deliver that, you need to have some kind of charisma, body language, be confident, look confident. Okay, there was an old saying that you have to look and be. You look tough, therefore you are tough. You look confident, you are confident. You know, these are the psychological things that I'm sure Ido would perhaps have confirmed last week. But this is the sort of basic psychology that we all know and that we actually worked on through our many years of refereeing. But if you're a beginner referee, you don't yet know that. And you need to have vision, and you need to have focus. Now, and another little thing that somebody said once was that we look with our eyes, but we see with our brain, which is a nice thing to say, that you actually look in the correct area, but it's what you see. What do you take out of that image that you see is really what's important, and that happens inside your brain. Okay, and many younger referees, in fact, get panicky. You know, there's a lot of noise on a volleyball court, and beginner referees sometimes you can see it in their face that they're unsure. Is the noise directed at me? Is there some reason that I've made a mistake here? But they have to be confident that they have made a correct decision, and they have to keep that facial expression constant or steady, or at least the face mustn't crumple like is if you're about to cry. And likewise, it mustn't be all smiles. Okay, but what's really important, perhaps for many referees, is what's happening. Eyes give the idea of what's going on inside your brain. Okay, if your eyes look confident, then probably the rest of you looks confident as well. Okay, and it's a question of selling your decision. And of course, again, as a beginner referee, you need to have a strong and commanding whistle, you know, and a lot of referees perhaps at the beginning don't do that. So hopefully the younger referees who are listening in tonight, okay, learn to blow your whistle. And if you go to the next slide, we'll actually see the basics. I put a slide in simply to put a small cartoon in the top right hand corner. But anyway, many people think they can blow a whistle, but the reality is that not everybody can blow a whistle. Not everybody blows it correctly. Not everybody knows how to command a decision, how to command the teams even to line up the protocol, and so on. So we need to learn to blow it and when to blow it. And if a young referee learns to do that, then that gives an image of authority to the young referee. Okay. And as I said, an awful lot of referees at the beginning, they just don't know how to do that. Some of them don't know how to blow it. Some of them hold the whistle in their hand, and so on. So if you are teaching people to referee, probably one of the basic things you need to tell them to do is how to blow the whistle correctly. Okay. Because if they don't, then they don't look confident, and that's a bad thing for them. Okay. Right. So I think I said all of that anyway. So if we go on to the next slide. Okay. Now, this is where, again, a little bit of research. Players and coaches sometimes have their own thoughts about referees. And here I've put together one or two of the comments that players and coaches have made. And you can see where we are with them. Okay, so if you do first one, and I'll read it out. Okay. This is a player about a referee. If you're going to be my friend, if you're refereeing me and you're calling me by my name, I'll probably talk to you more and try to influence your decisions more. Okay, that's a genuine comment. Okay, if the referee is the best friend, or appears to be the best friend, or wants to be the best friend of the player, then the player recognizes that and actually leans on that and actually tries to influence the referee's decisions. Okay, another one. And this, I know this is a really terrible thing for me to do, but I yelled out, not directly, but I spoke aloud on purpose to another player that had to be a double. Okay. And then the referee called it after I had shouted. Okay, so again, there's an influence there that's taking place. Okay, we've been there. We've all been beginner referees, and we know that happens. Okay, my intentions of seeing her, of her seeing me upset and hearing it, would be kind of even up the game. All right, again, trying to shift the balance of play, shift the balance of referee decision making towards that player and that team. So these are deliberate things that players are doing. Okay. And another one, referees who are seen to be more friendly can kind of be manipulated. Okay, next slide. So what we take from that is that players will generally try to influence. Players sometimes behave irrationally. Sometimes, you know, they're making a decision based upon feelings or what they want to have happened. You know, that ball was definitely in when clearly it was out, but they wished it had been in. Okay. Sometimes players just accept a decision, which is good, but players can often take the opportunity to complain, to question. Sometimes they flatter. Okay. Doesn't last because often they're just basically trying to act strategically. They know what they're doing. They can push, and if they want to push, they will push and push hard if the referee doesn't look confident. You know, if there's a chink in the referee's armor, then the players will actually try to strategically act on that and push a little bit further than perhaps they might otherwise have done. Okay, a confident referee, on the other hand, probably is not going to be influenced that much. Okay, anyway, that's disappointing that players might want to do that, but that's not just me saying that. Those are actually comments from players. Okay, and it's a bit disappointing that the teams would actually want to do that. Okay, but they want to win. Referees, on the other hand, don't actually have the same mentality as that. Their job is to be fair, to be even, to be just, okay, to be even-handed on everything. Players want to win. Coaches want to win. So the mentality is different, okay? However, all referees should be able to counter that. And I think, again, one of our psychologists the other week said the referees have all of the tools to actually counter this, to actually make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, so to command or direct a match to a satisfactory conclusion, what do we need? There are more things to consider than what we've just talked about, but let's talk about them some more. Next slide. All right. First of all, we can't be anybody's best friend, you know, and I mean that in a sporting sense. Okay, obviously you might be somebody's best friend who's playing, but you're not going to show that. Okay, in terms of the match itself, the referee is straight down the line. Friendly, fine. Fair, absolutely. Neutral, yes. Just, even-handed, yes. They make their own decisions, not influenced by anybody. They act decisively, positively, professionally, and they have the body language that goes along with that. So that's what they need to be able to do. Okay. Here we've actually got our mental storage system. I thought, since we had two psychologists recently, I thought I'd just show some pictures of what I imagine my mind is like, or maybe your mind is like. This is our mental storage system, okay? The kind of memory vault that we have, where we're actually looking to access Rule 2.4 or 11.5.1, whatever those rules are. Okay, so they're there in the memory vault, and we have to access them. Okay, next slide. And as I said before, knowledge is a core element, but it has to be combined with experience as well. You know, the more games that a young referee or referees, the better the referee should become. You know, it's all to do with combining the knowledge of the book with the knowledge of the actual game itself. We can't just be book-learned referees. You know, we can do a lot of theory. We can do all this theory online, but it's absolutely no use at all if that's all the referee ever does. The referee has got to be in there, has got to referee physically, be on the court and whistle. Okay, so although we spend a lot of time on rules, casebook, referee guidelines, committed referees are always interested. They're always going to be asking questions. They're always discussing. And that's the reason why we're here tonight. We simply love to talk refereeing. We simply love to talk rules. We simply love to talk casebooks and challenges and videos. And, oh, did you see that happen there? And so did this, and this happened. All of these things are really interesting. We ask relevant questions of, why did that happen? Should that be the case? Okay, and we'll see some videos, I hope, later on that maybe confirm that. But the referee stores the knowledge in a kind of memory vault that I kind of showed you a picture of later. And that's where he or she accesses the relevant cases and rules which match as far as possible the situation which occurred in the match. So when they do that, or when we do that, there's a kind of series of linkages that take place. Okay, and we maybe see that on the next slide. Okay, so certainly, as I said, we'll see it on the next slide. But okay, if you're a young referee, don't think that we're simply being boring old people that are only interested in rules. It's important that you know the rules, in fact, in order to move forwards and to actually apply those rules in a real life situation. Okay, next one. So, right, this is where I tried to use an analogy. I called it mirror signal maneuver and hazard awareness. Okay, you're driving along on the road. Okay, and you can see that's me with hair in the top right hand corner. Okay, I see an object or a person or an incident up ahead, and I think, what am I going to do? So I'm aware of a hazard ahead, and I'm going to react to that. Okay, so next. So having recognized it, I have to look in the memory vault of experience to figure out, what do I do? Am I supposed to brake? Am I supposed to swerve? Am I supposed to indicate? Am I supposed to look in the mirror? What am I supposed to do? Okay, so I get prepared for the action that I'm going to take in a moment, and then I actually have to carry that action out, look in the mirror perhaps, signal perhaps, take the action and maneuver, or whatever I'm going to do, or crash. Okay, so I could crash the car if I don't do it right. But most of that I've just described is automatic. These are automatic responses that we have. We don't really have time to actually process all that data and react to it. Okay, so some of our brain power is available to do that. Other parts we just have to use as an automatic reflex. So moving on. You'll see there we've got some bits of the human brain, again, based upon what Edith was showing last week. I thought I'll show a human brain just to be clever. Anyway, here we see the brain, and the frontal lobe there and the temporal lobe are important parts. Okay, a lot of that has to do with sensory memory and short-term and long-term memory. Why sensory memory is important? Well, again, research suggests that if you were a player and you can remember how it was to set the ball, how it was to dig the ball, how it was to attack the ball, and so on, having had that memory, you can actually recognize that in the players that you're refereeing. And therefore you have a better chance of actually making a good decision about their action, as it was a fault or not a fault. Okay, and that's not just true of volleyball, it's true of many sports too. So the background is that the more knowledge you have of actually playing the sport, the more chance you've got of refereeing it well. So good referees probably were players in their time. Okay, man played are probably never going to rise to the top, and they're the ones who are going to struggle a little bit unless they actually can put some additional work in to actually figure out how it is that people actually play the game. So we have a sensory memory, frontal lobe, short and long-term memory, and again, there's our filing cabinet. So this is where we go and we access the particular parts that are relevant to the action that we see on the court. Okay, next slide. So when we learn anything, in fact, okay, we have to recognize something that we've done, that we've seen before, and this is true of your kids at school or anything else that you learn. Okay, you have to recognize it as something you've done before, and therefore you have to build some kind of learning structure. Okay, and again, another little picture to show all the relationships that are going on in your head. There's hot dog sausages in there, and there's couches, and there's cars, and there's all sorts of things going on in your head. We need to kind of relate what we're seeing on the court to what we're actually experienced, what we have actually experienced in the past. Okay, so we see it multiple times in order for us to actually build this thing called a schema, or schema. Next slide. Okay, so in order to get deep and enduring learning, we need to make a relevance between what we're seeing, or what we're trying to read, and what we're actually seeing. So there has to be some kind of relevance between the knowledge and the thing that you're dealing with at the time. Okay. Many of us actually respond better to one teacher rather than another, and it creates a kind of strategic biography, if you like, where we've gone through a variety of teachers. We get to a particular teacher that we like, that's actually doing things that we can actually relate to, makes the linkages, makes things relevant, puts things in a context, and therefore that's how we learn. Okay, and the same thing is true of volleyball rules. If we look at the rules, analyze the rules, think about why is that rule in place, then we can go on and we can learn from that. We also learn from our more experienced colleagues. Okay, so don't assume that because somebody is older that they are not relevant anymore, that the person who's taking you to the match may be an older volleyball person, but you're absorbing all sorts of unconscious things from that person. You're learning attitudes, you're learning experiences, you're learning stories, and you're putting it all together, and it's becoming part of you as well. Okay, so the older person, the mentor, if you like, has been there, they've done that, they've got the t-shirt. Okay, learn from that and accept what they're telling you. There may be a reason why they're telling you something. It may not be what you want to hear, but it may well be that maybe you shouldn't be saying, okay, I know better than this old person. Maybe they've actually been there and they have done it, and maybe they have refereed at a high level, and maybe they do understand the game a little bit better than you. So if you're a young aspiring referee, then please listen to the older person. Okay, Roy, next one. So this is the kind of thing that would have to happen. You've got the observed action, you've got the relevance to what you're seeing in the rule text, you're linking it all together, and then you're making a decision. Now the decision could be, yes, it was a fault, in which case you'll whistle and you'll stop the play. It could be that there's no fault, in which case you don't whistle and you play on. And then you've got not sure, the grey area, where again you don't whistle and you play on. In each of those areas there, you've got a feeling. How do you feel? Do you feel confident? Yeah, okay, fantastic, good. Then you should show that. Not arrogance, confidence, different. And then you've got the areas where it was not quite so clear, but don't feel that you shouldn't be confident about it, you know. It doesn't matter if other people think differently. You're confident, you saw it, you can justify it, okay, and that's fine. Next slide. So in our decision making then, what we have involved, we've got different strategies. We anticipate the player action. These are the kind of takeaways from what I've said so far. Anticipate the player action. Recognize the possibility of a fault. Okay? Access the appropriate rule or case in the memory vault. Recognize and accept the reason or similarity to something you've seen before. Okay? Make the actual decision, and we can call that the outcome if you like. And then we award the point by signaling the next team to serve. Okay, and then if we have to, we make ourselves an explanation. Okay, in other words, we're telling us ourselves that that was the correct decision and why. Okay, or we can give a signal to indicate, yes, that was the next team to serve, and this is the reason, double or whatever. Okay, or if be able to verbalize that. Okay, and you make a face-to-face explanation. That's not so easy. It's very easy to stick your arm out and to say that that was a double, or that was a catch, or that was reaching beyond the net. All these sorts of things are very easy to do. But verbalizing to explain that in words that make sense to the captain is not so easy. I'll go back to something that Ido said last time. Rehearse those particular occasions. Okay, you know what you want to say it clearly, say it simply, and say it well. Do not say it in a way that gives an avenue for you to be confused or for the player to be confused, in which case there will be some kind of conflict between the two of you. Not a good idea. Okay, so a lot of it has to do with what our eyes are doing. And I said at the very start of the last slide, we need to anticipate, right? One of the major things that irritates players and coaches is referees seeing an action clearly, but missing an obvious fault, okay? So positioning of your head, positioning of your eyes is a key aspect of refereeing. I think every single referee knows this, or should know this. Get your eyes level, get your eyes in good position, you'll see it. If you're late getting to that point, you'll miss it, okay? You can only get to that point if you anticipate. I think I said already this evening, if you think the setter is front court or think the setter is back court, you know what's going to happen if there's an overpass or if the ball is close to the net and so on. You need to be aware of what are the potentials, what are the potential hazards here, okay? And be tense enough, be aware of where you have to look. You have to look at the right part of the net. So many of us, I'm sure, have actually reacted late to something. We've all done it. We've all done it. But if we do it, then we don't see clearly, and we get a kind of blurred image. So the eyes are really important, and getting the eyes level is something that's been a bee in my bonnet for many, many years. Get your eyes level, get your eyes stable, and look at the right place. Okay. And likewise, if you're a second referee, you need to be anticipating a ball which is badly received, etc., and it's going past the post. Anticipate that ball is going to go there, and be aware of your footwork that you need to do, and where you need to keep looking, and why you shouldn't be just running out of the way. Okay, you need to keep a full view of the action. So first referees and second referees both need to be able to do this. So it's not enough just to stand at the post. You need to be able to be moving, anticipate, moving in the right place at the right time. Okay, even to the point of serve reception. When do you move? You know, when do you move? If you move late, then the ball is passing across the net, and you can't see it. Maybe that's bad too. So you need to move at the right time. Okay, next slide. So we've seen this slide before. I make no apologies for showing it, but this is what I'm talking about. The second referee has a good starting position. Maybe for me, perhaps even could be a little bit closer to the post, but that was his particular starting position. But his footwork was sufficiently good that he knew what he was going to do. Okay, so here we go. All right, so, good position. All right, I'm blocking side. But here we go. Boom. So he's moved, he's anticipated, and he's in a good position. Back again. Okay. Another one. Similar situation. it's not the same situation, but similar. Okay, again, he's stepping out of the way. He's not in the way of the player. He's in full view, or the ball is in full view, the player's in full view. So he's in total control of that particular movement. Okay, so these are ways in which we can demonstrate our professionalism as referees. Okay, right, next slide. All right, backline issues, of course. If the setter is backline, of course, then the anticipation begins before the service is made. With modern technology, okay, the first referee's chair's got a tablet on there, so you know where the setter is, you know where the opposite is, and so on. You can track the players, provided the tablet is actually working at the right speed, which doesn't always happen, I hasten to add, so just beware of that. Sometimes the tablets run slow, and so you can get somebody out of position. You know, I mean, I've seen that happen. It happened once in Japan, that a referee called a positional fault, which wasn't, because the tablet was showing one thing, but what was on the court was something different. And on the court position was actually correct. So here we've got an example of setters in position 2. There's an overpass, and okay, what are you expecting? Okay, now there's no illegal back line hit immediately, so that's not a problem. But you should be aware of where the setters are, because if the setter was back line, there would be potential issues. Okay, anyway, let's look at see if we can see what happens in this particular one. Okay, next slide. Right, okay, before we begin, setter's front court on the left-hand side, you see that? However, as a referee, one of the things you should also be aware of, where's the setter on the other side? You know, who are front line, and what will happen if the rally progresses? Will the setter come in from the back, or will the setter be in the front? Okay, you need to know these things as well. There's no tablet on the post in this particular case, so the referee is really using her own resources and her own remembrance of where the people. That's okay. Referees need to be able to use their brain. Don't rely on the tablet, don't rely on the technology. It's there as a help. If it's not there, you have to do your own thing. Okay, Roy, you just want to play it? Okay, and here we go. And we've got the situation. Right, so again, anticipate. Okay. All right, I'm not going to ask you whether or not the decision was correct or not. Okay, that's not the purpose of this particular slide. The purpose of the slide, however, is just to make us think. You know, think, did we anticipate? Now, if we go to the next slide, we'll see I froze the action just at the point. So we'll go to the next slide, Roy. Okay, so there's the action. You can decide for yourself whether the setter brushes the net. You can decide for yourself if the ball was cut by the plane of the net. You can decide for yourself if there was anything actually wrong at all. I'll leave it entirely to you. I'm not making any decision on your behalf. You can tell us that yourself. But the important bit is, did you anticipate? Did you anticipate what potentially could happen? This is your hazard awareness that I referred to earlier, so that you can actually look at the situation in advance, know what potentially can happen, and maybe even have your decision ready, not made, because it may not happen, but your decision is ready. It's in the memory bank. It's in the out tray, as it were, ready for action when you need to do it. Okay. So, but again, keep your eyes stable. If you're looking at the right place at the right time, then you get away with it. Now, in terms of communication skills, one of the things that I'm trying to say here is respect the players, and they'll hopefully respect you. Okay, but it's important that all of the important stuff takes place on the court, and many referees have in the past got themselves into a really difficult situation by getting involved in unimportant stuff. You know, it's getting close to set point, and all of a sudden the second referee decides to go away from the action and to tell the players in the warm-up area to step back 2 or 3 centimeters. You know, that's really not what we're talking about here. The important bit is what happened in the court. Was there a net fault? Was there a backline hit? Was there whatever? Those are the important things that happen. And we should take those responsibilities seriously and look at the key areas and really just look at the key areas and very little else. Too many of us, and include me in that, have actually put additional pressure on the referees by saying, oh, you forgot to do that, or you forgot to do that. But really, don't notice these things if we don't draw attention to them. And by drawing attention to that particular aspect, we took away from the attention on the court, which is maybe not the best thing. And it doesn't look good on TV either. So anyway, in order to do the proper communication, then the referee needs to have some kind of strategy and processing skills to actually deliver those decisions when approached by the game captain. Now, many of us actually get tongue-tied. That means we struggle to find the right words. Even if, for example, English was your first language, you may have difficulty at finding the right word, and you could use a word which perhaps to you means the same, but perhaps to the captain doesn't mean at all the same. So you can get yourself into big problems unless you use technical words from the rule text, or unless you use simple words, or unless you don't express yourself clearly. You need to express clearly what it is you want to say and use enough body language with confidence, and perhaps not even be aggressive about it. Don't be aggressive. Don't be dismissive. You know, just be calm and confident to deliver the message. But don't be dismissive. Dismissive is not good. It's actually quite demeaning. It's actually quite dismissive of players' sensibilities and their thoughts, etc. So we need to have respect on both sides. Okay. Fast reactions we talked about. Okay, most of it needs to be automatic. Again, this is just a takeaway from what I've said before. Mechanics being automatic allows your brain to do other things. Allows you to make those attachments to the rules in the memory vault. Okay. Okay, and next click. All right, so we're making a lot of decisions. As I said that. If, for example, there was 5 challenges in a match, again, top referees, 5 out of thousands and thousands of decisions is actually not very, very bad. Okay, so you're really doing very, very well. But from the moment that you've checked the teams are ready, you've started to make lots of decisions. Okay, and you'll continue to do that even as the server approaches the service line, even as the server tosses the ball, even as the server hits the ball, watches the ball travel between the antenna, and so on. Okay, so many of those things are already in an area where they can be challenged. You can be challenged for a service fault, and you can be challenged for all sorts of other things too. Okay. Right, move on. Right. And so on. Okay. So our percentage success rate is really quite fantastic as referees. So keep that in mind. We do well. And even if the Hawkeye challenges actually have gone against the referee, suppose there was 10 challenges and you lost 10. It doesn't sound very good, but in terms of the overall match process, it's not been too bad. However, I wouldn't like you to have 10 against you, but it does happen sometimes. It can happen. I'm sure Zoritsa is our most experienced challenge referee here, and I'm sure that there are occasions when the odds have gone against the referee, but the referee still had a pretty good game. Okay, we can do better, however. We can do better. Always we can do better. Right. Okay, pause. Right, what was wrong there? Okay, we saw the libero in blue, and if we can see what the libero was doing, we have a decision to make. So again, one of these anticipatory things that I talked about before, and then the referee has to make a decision, and it's up to the referee to decide whether or not they stick with that decision. Now, I made very little comment about whether or not it was wise to do so. He did it. He changed his mind. But if you know the rule says that if the libero makes an attempted block, oh, he's up and he's blocking. Would that be counted as an attempted block? I think that was official. The initial call was yes, it was. And it might be worthwhile just thinking about, you understand the rule, you know the rule, you make a decision, and you actually don't really want to change your mind. You can make a decision badly. And as when I was talking to my own referee commission last night, we were talking to just our federation really, but I think it went elsewhere. And one of the things that I remember doing was I called a ball down that wasn't, and it's one of these things I should have, and in that particular instance said, yeah, sorry guys, I got it wrong, replay. But in fact, being a young referee, I thought, okay, I'll be decisive and I'll stay with that. Perhaps the worst thing I should have done. And I think that's true of many of us. We actually make decisions, and we actually stand on our dignity, and we make a decision, and we actually don't change it instead of admitting we got it wrong. Now, I'll be honest with you, I looked at that video that we just saw and I thought, well, that to me looked like a back line player, a libero making an attempted block. Even if he didn't touch the ball, don't know if he did or not, we can't see from here, like it was. And although he's trying to claim that no, he was standing in the ground, no, he wasn't. He was in midair, and it was an attempted block. Okay, so we can decide, was the referee's first instinct correct or not? And I think that's where you have to make your own decision in that one. Okay, move on. Right, we like to have things that are clear cut. As referees, we like black and white things. We don't like grey areas. When we're making a judgment call, often we think, oh, I'd rather not do that. It'd be nice if it was, yes, it was a net fault. No, it was not a net fault, and so on. Sometimes we actually have to make a decision that is not quite so straightforward as that. And when we make that grey area decision, and we've actually maybe decided, well, I'm not going to call that, a little bit of confidence maybe evaporates when we do that. So we've got to be confident when we're making that we're going to be right, and that we can communicate that to the players. How do we communicate it is, again, going back to what I said before, our eyes communicate an awful lot. Our eyes are the window to the soul, I think they describe it as. So via facial expression, we can give too many secrets away if we're not confident. However, sometimes, for example, if there is a challenge, and this is where I'm now talking to elite referees, if there's a long three-way conversation, then it kind of gives a suggestion that nobody's entirely sure what happened. Anyway, we'll see from the next video that if there's a long delay, it can create anxiety amongst the players. And then once the decision is finally made, we can get an explosion from the coaches. So these are the kind of areas that, again, we need to rehearse in our mind to think, what am I going to do if this happens? Okay. Anyway, let's see.
Just just to add something really small that I know all referees, when the match is the last point of the match and it was a close
Yeah.
match, first referee prays to God that it's going to be served to the net, a ball in out with 5 meters change, something, and will not have to whistle for a carry, double fault, or small net touch or something like that. That's the prayer of all referees.
This is true. However, if you do have a challenge setup going, then by all means call a referee challenge at the last point, and then that's the best way to go. And it doesn't matter if the teams have used up all their challenges. You're still making a decision that may be worth $1 million to somebody. So it's actually a good time to actually call a self challenge. But I agree. Anyway, let's see this one. Okay, second referee has called the ball off the antenna by the team on the right-hand side. Okay. But now we're going to get a lot of discussion, so this is not entirely the first referee's fault, but the referee is giving, no, okay, now, immediately, I'm sure the hackles on Zoritz's neck are going up because he's given the point to Netherlands and then he calls a self-challenge, which you shouldn't do. If you're going to call a self-challenge, you do it immediately before you give any point away, because now the poor scorer's got to do a lot of unpicking. Well, the audience is quite happy, however. They're having a good time. Now the question is, who touched it last? Because I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem as if it might convince everybody. But clearly the referee is thinking, I wish this would be much more clear than that. And as Roy said, you're just hoping that you want to have things clear cut. You don't want to have to then analyze and then analyze and then analyze and then analyze further. I wish I could read what he's saying, but I don't speak Dutch, so. Now we see it from the other side. There we go. At last. Now, one of the things that well, I'm going to ask Zoritz a question. You knew I was going to ask you this, Zoritz. Would you have used a freeze frame?
My opinion, that mistake was done by Korean team because the ball touched antenna from their side.
Hmm. Yeah, the more you look at it,
last touch was by Korean player.
Yeah, the more you look at it, the more you can convince yourself of all sorts of different things. But you're probably correct. Even when we saw it from the net camera, I was not convinced there wasn't a net fault in there as well. But who knows for sure?
First, I thought that Korean player touched the net.
Yeah.
After the, but also the ball touch antenna.
Sure. Yeah. No, I tend to agree with that. I wish that they had actually shown one frame, just a freeze frame, showing who had touched the ball last, rather than the slow motion. You know, as the ball rotated out of the two sets of hands. It would have been more clear to me what had happened. But I tend to agree with you. Although the reaction of the Netherlands player seemed to be, well, okay, I got it. But however, these are the sort of things that happen. But as a referee, you really don't want to be calling a self-challenge after you have awarded the point. And he awarded the point to Netherlands first, and then he did a self-challenge. So body language was not convincing because there was so many things that were going on that he wasn't in control of. However, anyway, moving on, Roy, a little bit more. Okay, ball in, as well as touch, ball in kind of dominates all protests and appeals. So if you take the two things that dominate all of the complaints, etc., from players and coaches, etc. The rest, floor touch, backline hits, and so on, they tend to make a very small percentage of the number of overall challenges that take place or protests. As referees, we were trained to use our line judges. Okay, we whistled, we checked where the ball had landed, we checked the line judges, we got the information we wanted, and then we made a decision based upon that. However, as the games got faster and faster, especially at the top levels of the game, but even lower down as well, the game has got faster. The ball flies very fast, and this is perhaps not the best way to deal with it. What we really need to be able to do as referees is to actually make a decision ourselves. So we act decisively, and we check with the line judge that that's in fact what happened. The line judges have the same problem that referees have, that our eyes are not fast enough in reacting to a situation. The ball flies in about 0.17 of a second, for example, from the attack at the net to the floor. And really, we need to be ahead of that. We can't track the ball and see what happens just by following the trajectory. It's just not going to happen. We miss everything that happens when the ball hits the floor. When the ball hits the floor, there's a lot of things happen, but we need to compute the landing point. We need to figure out where's that landing point going to be, and we need to be looking there before the ball lands. Okay, so if you do that, then there's a chance of you seeing what the ball is actually doing. And the ball, as we know now, because initially, I think the information came from Polsat in Poland, that the ball compression was just way beyond anything we ever imagined it was going to be. And so when the ball hits the floor, maybe outside the line when it actually hits the floor, but it compresses, it deforms. It's like a balloon full of water. You just drop it on the floor, it just squishes to the side. And it will roll as well, and then it will reform in its original shape. But throughout all of that process, it's actually contacted the line and maybe even contacted the actual course itself. What you see is only the ball leaving the floor. and the ball leaves the floor, maybe from outside the court, and you think, okay, ball's out. In reality, the ball actually flattened enough to actually contact the court. So you can see there, the initial contact point is the red dot. There's the 5 centimeters of the line. But the right-hand side is the court, and the left-hand side is out of court. So it's contacted out of court, but it's compressed. Look what it's done. It's actually hit the line. It's hit the court. So that ball is in. You know, so that's what TV did for us. Ago, we pushed the idea that it was initial contact that was important, but we can't see initial contact really. It's just too fast for us now. So we had to rely on this particular knowledge now to realize how the ball actually behaves when it hits the floor. So that's important. So we can see an example of that here, I hope. Play it. In actual fact, it's a slightly different example, but nevertheless, wait till we see what happens. Boom. Okay. So, good block. Yeah, interesting. That's one of these things that when we wrote the rules, we actually didn't appreciate some of these things that could happen. So that one, at first you look at it and think, what happened? You know, and it's only when you see it again and again and again, you begin to realize, good block, boom, and it landed on the line. Okay, so important that we actually appreciate some of these things. Okay, next slide. Here's an interesting one. I don't know if you've seen this one before. Watch what happens to the player who retrieves the ball in the opponent's free zone. Okay. Now, immediately, all the referees that saw this said, "What is happening here? What's the decision? Who gets the ball? Is that a good block, or was that, you know, what happened?" Well, in actual fact, you're only allowed to play in your own area. So I'm afraid that the team on the left should have lost the referee. But there was a lot of, is that right? Is that what should happen? Again, what did we say before? Knowledge of the rules is important, and that's the reason why you do have to know the rules so you can make those decisions, those snap decisions, without losing confidence and without appearing to be uncertain. You don't want to be uncertain, because that's when the players start to think about attacking. Okay, next slide. Okay, another one. Okay, second referee, just keep your eyes on the job, which is looking at the net and the center line. When we changed a lot of the duties of the second referee, one of the things that we wanted to do was to focus on the two main areas, net and center line. Okay, so again, anticipate that something could happen, but keep your eyes on the appropriate part of the action. Okay, second referees probably never see most of the game because their eyes are too busy looking at the net and the center line. Okay, so all you young referees, pay attention to that. You need to be aware of the main function that you have is looking at the net and the center line. Other things, yes, for sure as well, but don't forget that those two primary functions. Right, so how do you get a team to accept a decision? Right, there's kind of 7 interpersonal actions which are important. Okay, 7. Obviously whistle, okay? Gaze. Now, your eyes, I think I said, are the window to the soul. So you're looking in the right area. Now, the eyes can actually pick up a player, okay, the one that's going to cause you the biggest problem, and either you just let your eyes drift across them, and they know that you're looking at them, and they don't look, okay, or they're the angry ones, and your eyes linger on them just a little bit longer, and then you shake your head and say, no, don't try it, okay, it's not worth getting angry, no. Then there's the posture. How's your body language? Is it confident? Is your head up? And so on, okay? Arm and hand signals. These are the non-verbal explanations about the offence that took place, or not the offence, but the fault that took place. There's a verbal explanation, perhaps, but as I said before, not just to the player who's approaching you, okay? And then what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we've also got finally the control aspect. Okay, so those are the aspects that we need to put in place to actually make sure that people are accepting a decision. And the composure could be part of the posture as well. Okay, posture, composure, facial expression, these things are all wrapped up together. And managing the time, there's an aspect of this whereby if you allow an argument to go on too long, nobody wants to see an argument, okay? One of the things that we've learned from previous examples is if you want to get out of an argument, then you want to get the play restarted. As soon as the play restarts, the players want to get on with playing. They don't want to continue the argument because it's not worth their while. Okay, that's time has gone. So get the play started as quickly as possible without being crazy about it, of course. You know, you're not going to rush everybody into action, but you're going to make sure the play starts fairly soon. So examples. Touch calls, okay? If a team is likely to claim or has been claiming touches all the time, if you're indicating who touched the ball and the most obvious ones, you know, the players get into the habit of recognizing, oh, this referee knows that there was a touch, okay? Potentially then, and it's only a potential, in the small cases where there's a was it or was it not, because you already indicated so clearly all the other times, maybe the players will actually just accept, okay, fine, I didn't see one, but maybe there was a touch, or I thought there was, but the referee's not signaling this time, so okay, I'll accept it this time. So you get into the mind of the players as well, okay? Gives you they can give you a break when it's a 50-50 call, to be ahead of the curve on those ones. Okay, so in obvious cases, you can show who the player was. In the less obvious cases, you can show again who touched it or who you think touched it. And if you're not showing it, then perhaps the players believe you didn't, that there wasn't a touch at all. Okay. Be confident, but not arrogant. There's Andrej Zenovic. I think we can all understand that Andrej was confident, super confident, in fact. But I don't think I would ever have called Andrej arrogant, you know, and that's important. He was confident. He was a showman, although he's I think Zorit says he's now a member of your refereeing commission in Europe. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so very, very good at his job, very professional what he did, always asked important questions and so on. But when he did his actions, there was always a little bit of a show, you know, and when he indicated the ball was in, you know, there was a tiny little body lean. It was all he needed to do. It was just, yeah, the ball was definitely in, and you could see him actually, without realizing it, he was actually looking at the player that was going to give him the biggest problem. And nod of the head, no, it was in, definitely, and so on. So these are the things. So the gaze, the glance, the nod, the head shake, the body lean, all these things are important, you know. And referees like Andrej would have used their eyes to control the teams. Okay, and there's other referees that can do the same thing as well, but in a different way. We all have our own different styles, and we all have our own different strengths. Okay, but certain referees know when to scan the team after a decision, and know when that scan is going to impact a lot on the player's reaction to your decision. Okay, just like you gaze rest sometimes on a player. Okay, just enough to say I'm watching you. So I think we've said all that. Let's move on. Okay, there can be little hand movements as well. I mean, Umut Sukalo was great at the small hand movements as well. And if somebody complained that he had called a fault or didn't call a fault, then Umut would just look at them, you know, and Umut used his eyes phenomenally well. You know, he terrified most players as well, but Umut would simply say, "No, see those decisions there? My decisions." Okay, so that was what he would do. So, and anyway, as I said, they each have their own style. Next slide. So, do's and don'ts. Okay, so again, some takeaways. Don't hesitate. Don't act arrogantly. Don't reject the game captain with a dismissive talk to the hand gesture. So don't do that. Okay, especially not, you know, go away. Or on female players than you would be on men. Here's an example. One of the Williams sisters in tennis, you remember? She was disqualified from a match. She got really, really angry, and she was disqualified from the match by the umpire. If that had been John McEnroe in his day, would he have been expelled? Would he have been disqualified? Probably not. So when we are refereeing, don't be tougher on a player who makes angry reactions, etc. Don't make a difference between male or female. They must both be reacted the same way. Okay. In the men's case, if you really get them upset, all they do is hit the ball harder. If you get the women really upset, it seems to be a confidence thing, and that's not me being sexist. I've actually asked women about that too, that it can actually affect the way the team performs. Okay, so be careful about that. Don't let the coach rule or ruin your performance in the match. Okay. That's where you need to have rehearsed in advance. Think, how does this coach react? I've seen this coach before, and this coach does X, Y, and Z. Does this. Okay, how am I going to react when he does X, Y, and Z to me? So if you've practiced that, if you've rehearsed that, then you're not surprised when it happens, and therefore with confidence you can actually make a decision and finish that decision. What did I say before? You have the tools to do that. You have all the tools. You have the first level warnings. You have the second level warnings. You have the red card penalties. You have expulsion. You have disqualification. You've got all of them. Okay, international level, it doesn't happen very often. I have to admit, it does not happen very often. But when I wrote the misconduct rules, it was designed to be flexible. You can start at red, you can start at expulsion, you can start at disqualification, you can do any of that. Or you can start at first level warning. And so on. You can do all those sort of things. You have the tools to do that. Okay, so be prepared to do that. But whatever you do, don't let the coach chew you up bit by bit by bit through the match. Okay, respect. What did I say before? You have to respect each other, and the coach has to respect you, same as you respect the coach. Even if he has a reputation, you still have to respect him if he has done a good job in the past. Okay, but do get information before you make a final decision. Do admit when you've made a mistake and be quite humble about it. Do make a point of communicating with the coaches before the match. Okay, communicate nicely. Okay, and so on. Do pause, don't hesitate, but do pause before for the cards. before, I think on a previous talk, I actually made the point that many cards are issued by referees because the referee made a mistake. Okay, so pause before you reach for the cards. Okay, now in my discussions last night with my referees commission, okay, we were comparing notes, things that we had done in the past, and one of my colleagues had said that he remembered making a mistake in the match. Okay, and he knew it was a mistake, and he thought, "Oh, I'll just live with it." Okay, and the player had reacted badly, but he didn't give a yellow card to the player because he knew that that would just make things worse because it was his mistake in the first place. You know, so we're all the same. We all make mistakes. Okay, it's when you admit it is important, and if you're humble about it, you say, "Oh, sorry guys, made a mistake, my fault." You know, that's actually quite a good thing to do. Quite good, because then you are humble, then you're honest, then they appreciate that you're not standing on your dignity, you're not being arrogant about it, you're not sticking with that decision because you made it and nobody can make a mistake, etc., etc. You have admitted it, so that's good. Okay, you're human, like the players are too. Next one. So in a previous discussion, I talked about trust, okay? And you must still act with confidence, and that means knowing not just a rule, but the underlying principle of the rule, and apply the rule with what I call common justice, natural justice, okay? If you apply the rule in a way that's accepted by the society of the players, the teams, etc., coaches, etc., then that's good. Everybody thinks that you've been a good referee. You have applied the rules in a sensible way. Okay, we're not just a slave to the rules. We're not just a robot applying the rules. I mean, how many of us have actually got really upset when we've been on the phone and we've got a robot that's talking back to us, and you can't get through to the particular section that you want to get through to, and it just drives you crazy. And if referees apply rules in the same way, it's going to drive the players crazy as well. Okay. So what we want to do is to referee in a manner which is at one with the game, that we are part of the game as referees and not separate, not acting as robots, okay, not applying the rules without feeling. We need to feel the game, okay? We need to be in the zone all the time, okay? Right, okay. Trust your other referees, trust your other officials, okay? They can make mistakes too, but you need to trust them. Okay, and you try to prevent those mistakes in the pre-match and pre-event briefing. Talk in advance of the game. I talked earlier about rehearsal. One of the rehearsals is you sit down with your team, especially your second referee, and you talk, what's going to happen if this happens? How are we going to deal with that? Okay. It's not quite the same thing when you talk to your line judge of the scores, but nevertheless, you're going to have to tell them what you want. They're your team. You've got to make them your team, okay? And you make them a team by consulting regularly as appropriate. Now, you don't ignore them. You know, they make decisions, you accept them. Sometimes they make good decisions, sometimes they make bad decisions. Mostly there's good decisions. But you can give them an eye contact, you can give them a nod of the head, etc., without going crazy about it, but subtly, so that only people like the referee coaches are watching you and see that you're actually doing that. Okay, but remember, the buck stops with you. The final decision is yours, and therefore the blame is also yours as well. If you accept a wrong decision, then what happens is that you've made a second wrong decision. Okay, so one wrong decision, you piled another wrong decision on top by accepting it. You need to be aware of what happened, and you're confirming that with your line judge, you're confirming that with your second referee, but don't just accept it because they've made it or because you've passed the buck. I've seen, and I'm sure some of you have seen, referees who were challenged on something and who then directed attention. No, the line judge said it. You know, that was their decision. You know, no, that's the wrong thing to do. You need to accept the responsibility that goes with the job, and the job is that you are the boss as first referee. Okay, next one. So if we act professionally and do all the things we just talked about, then you can feel confident that you are behaving correctly and you're refereeing well. there's sometimes issues. For example, the coach who wants to be the show, and there's always one. There's always one. Okay. Now, I wondered what were the main things that cause referees problems, and wrongly, I think, I said the coach would be the one that would give the referee biggest problems. And I don't think that's true anymore. I think from research in other sports, and perhaps even in volleyball too, but maybe the volleyball people can tell me, that the stressors are as follows, in fact, in terms of order. So, Roy, can you click on the next one? Okay. The most stressful were making the right decision. You know, this just the stress of making a correct decision, judgment calls, basically. And the coach came about number 3 in the list of stressful things. So if you click a couple of more clicks, okay, okay. So not being in good position, not very good, or you're not in tune with the game, you're not anticipating well. So those are actually things that cause you stress. But I thought the coach would actually be the one that was number 1, and it's not. Least stressful, again, close to the bottom, players giving you a hard time is not particularly high, funnily enough. Player injury was a bit of a surprise, and I received abusive comments from spectators. So we all had calls from spectators, what a terrible referee, boo, hiss, etc. So referees just blank them out. They're not there. But it's making a call which you realise was a mistake. So again, back to my colleague who had made a mistake, and he knew it, and then he didn't card the player who was behaving badly, and that was because he realised that he had made the mistake. In my case, I'd made a call. I remember I called the ball down. It was not down, and that to me was actually preyed in my mind for a long time during the match. So it wasn't really not good. So that was definitely a stressor for me, and I'm sure other people have similar stressors. But if we go back to let's pick up on the coach that we mentioned. There are things that coaches seem to be doing currently, which we should think about and rehearse what we're going to do. Coaches do certain things. They can either start to complain right from the start of the match because they know they're going to give you a hard time because it's just they're in that kind of mood, or they can be perfectly happy all the way through the match till something occurs and then they explode. Both of them involve different treatments, and it's really up to us to have a think about how we're going to deal with that. So we click again, right? So although coaches were one of the stresses, decision making, how we actually deal with that is perhaps what we're dealing with here. So again, click. And although I said that the coach was actually one of the focuses here, I used to believe that the bosses were the ones that gave the referees the toughest time. You know, the heads of confederations and the heads of federations, you know, they used to sit there in the tribune, and faces would always be frowning, and the referees would catch a glance at them and begin to be a bit worried. Whereas the referee delegates, as we were then, we were really quite like pussycats. We actually didn't do very much. Well, the referees always said that we were not the cause of any stress to them. However, anyway, some of the behaviours can actually give referees problems, and there are more subtle ways of manipulating the referee. So let's move on to see what some of those things are. Okay, so sometimes the coach just wants to be heard. Sometimes he or she is just loud. Usually it's a he. Okay, sometimes they're having a bad day, and that's evident early in the game. Team is not performing well. When that happens, the referee team has to deal with it in a way that resolves the conflict in the smoothest way as possible, you know. And that could be things like just checking with the coach to say, okay, is there a problem? You know, what are the issues here? You know, is the technology working properly, and so on. Not an awful lot that the volleyball referees can really do about that, because they're kind of isolated from the coaches. Certainly the first referee is isolated from the coach, and really only deals with the coach through the game captain. But the second referee can, in fact, subtly be involved with cooling the behavior of the coach. On the other hand, the second referee is probably the person who's getting it in the ear all the time. Always the complaints are in the second referee's ear. If the second referee reacts, in other words, it, you know, makes a hand gesture, makes body language or whatever, or turns and says something, then the coach knows immediately that that referee is paying attention to him. There is an audience for the coach's performance, and the coach will perform even more in that direction, okay, which is not clever. So often turning and walking in the other direction to the other side of the net is actually very useful, or finding something else to do, go to the scorer, etc., etc., etc. And when all of those things are occurring, the coach doesn't have an audience anymore. Okay, next. Right, so if the coach is reacting to an incident, for example, then that's again something that the first referee should have practiced, should have rehearsed, should have worked out all sorts of words. And knowing in advance the behavior of the coach, first referee can therefore begin to think, do I take a deep breath? Do I give a yellow card, or do I ignore? You know, both things are actually okay. They can be okay. It depends on how you view the coach's actions. I always believed that if somebody misbehaved, then you should do something. Whether we all agree on the something is not important, but it's dealing with it in a way that is observable. You need to observe the referee in action, and the referee may well deal with it by calling the captain across and say, tell him no more, or call the game captain across and say, tell him he just had a yellow card, and show the yellow card. Whatever it is, there needs to be some kind of reaction to it, because if you don't react, then you look a little bit weaker, okay? Often nowadays, unfortunately, the explosion from a coach is often caused by projecting an unhelpful image on the giant screen. So if for example, as we've seen in the past, you've got a similar situation to the one where we saw earlier, where there was the ball on the antenna, all right? There's a famous example of that where the referee was in a very bad situation there because the images that were projected on the screen were not really helpful. And therefore, as soon as the first image was shown, Coach A explodes. Okay, Coach B reacts to Coach A exploding. Coach A and Coach B then have an argument across the net, or between themselves across the substitution zone, and so on. So these are the things that poor referee really has not much of a chance to deal with, unless you actually call the captains together and say, right, enough, tell them to stop, or a yellow card, both of you guys. But you have to do something. You have to do something, otherwise the referee is in a very bad situation. Okay. Okay, so clear difference between the two teams. First opportunity, Coach A feels he has to create an edge. So this guy is going to give you a hassle right from the start. He's going to start with every single net fault, net touch, block touch, backline fault, service fault. He's going to complain about everything. Okay? So he's trying to manipulate right from the start. So you've got to stop him doing that. Okay? Toolkits of solutions, perhaps. Well, you've got some well-known catchphrases. I remember Tom Lou was actually one of the ones who was on one of the earlier discussions. Reaction to this particular thing was really rather nice, actually. He called the captain across and said, tell the coach that he's your coach, he's not my coach. And from that moment onwards, the coach was reduced in terms of his impact, and he therefore behaved himself for most of the rest of the match, I think. Anyway, a good solution from Tom. But you can't ignore this guy, because he's going to eat you bite by bite by bite. But what did I say? Plan ahead. In your pre-match discussions with the second referee, work it out in advance. How are you going to approach this? How are you going to get your second referee to assist you with this? You know, often second referees are face-to-face with the coach. You know, and how you approach the coach is important. Face-to-face aggressively, not good. We need to there's a technique called avoidance. It doesn't mean run away from things. It means that you don't you don't react as if the words are directed towards you. They are basically directed towards the event, towards the situation, and you are not personalizing it. You're not actually the person who's being insulted. It's the job that's being insulted. So that's what avoidance means. Whereas if you go to the coach and you say, right, enough to stop, that would be an approach method, and that would perhaps be the way to go in the case where this coach is trying to eat you bite by bite. Okay. But if you understand what the coach's problem is, then that may allow a selection of an appropriate dealing with strategy. Okay, takeaways from that. What do we take away? Okay, have a plan. Coach goes too far, don't ignore, but act in the most appropriate manner to reduce tensions. That may mean second referee standing side by side as opposed to face to face. Okay, it may mean this first referee bending down, not bending over the player, but bending down so that there's more of an equality between the height of the coach, the height of the player and the height of the referee on the stand. Okay, but don't let the coach eat away at your authority throughout the match. That's just bad. Okay, it destroys the match. Okay, you cannot offer an olive branch. That means hesitate before you give the cards. Think about it. Okay, you can find out what's wrong. Okay, and you can do that through the game captain. You can do that through the second referee. You can communicate with your team as soon as you can about what you found out, and it may give you some maneuver room later. Okay, but whatever happens, get back to business as usual as quickly as you can. You've got a game to whistle, and getting the game restarted again is perhaps the most important thing. Okay. Mentioned avoidance coaching, avoidance coping, and approach coaching. We'll not talk about it anymore. Okay, just move to the next slide, please, Roy. Done all that. Okay. So be human. Understand the issue before you react. Use others to help you resolve the conflict. Okay, and all these things link to that decision-making process that we started talking about an hour and a bit ago. Okay, so when you're a beginner, or whether you're a more experienced referee, Okay, some of the things that I've said will act as a reminder. Some of them will be new, I hope. But we make decisions based upon how we are comfortable with them. So if a technique doesn't work for you, there are plenty more that you can choose from. Okay? These techniques may fit your personality better, may fit your experience better, but as you get more experienced, then perhaps you'll use one rather than another, or maybe one that you didn't use before, maybe that becomes much more important to you later on. Okay? And I think we're nearly there. Okay. 1.5 hours. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. It was very, 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 very interesting. Took me a couple of seconds to shake out from this presentation. First of all, let me thank Sandy. Thank you very much, Sandy, for this presentation. 1.5 hours of thrilling and psychological presentation, even though you're not a sports psychologist.
Oh, definitely not a sports psychologist. No, for sure not.
No, but then we can see now more and more that this the psychologist's point of view in our work is very much dominant, and we need to work on that more and more. Any questions? You can unmute yourself, or any comments that you would like to add, please. We are open and we can hear from you. Any opinions that you have, please. Somebody's still awake.
Oh, I've killed them all. I've killed them all. There we
go. I would like to ask something, if it's possible, Sandy.
Sure, okay.
When we have courses, when we have international courses or national courses for young referees and everything, most of the course works on rules about the theory, some practical work, but nothing mostly, there's not much material on what we're talking now for the last meetings, the psychological point of view. Is there anything that you know that is going to be changed, or some topics that are going to be added to these courses?
The higher level courses, for example, the FIVB course that's planned for Mexico later on this year, will have some degree of psychological input in the sense of what sort of thing I've just been describing. As you begin, it's all mechanics. It's mechanics and rules, and then it's how to get out of trouble, how to solve that problem, and then you go further, and then it's how to avoid the problem in the first place. You know, so the more you go, the more you anticipate problems. The hazard awareness that I talked about before becomes much more important. You know, the top level games are probably far easier to referee than the lower level games because the technique is so good. It's very, very much the mechanics just take over, and it's when something goes wrong with that's when the elite referee comes into his or her own. And those referees probably have actually seen so much volleyball that they know exactly what the setter is going to do. They know when the setter is going to set to the back line. They know when there's going to be a block. They know when there's going to be an illegal libero replacement. There's going to be an illegal libero attempted block, and so on. All these things are actually flowing around the elite referee's mind. Hearing a discussion not about volleyball. This was by a famous racing driver called Jackie Stewart, who just happened to be Scottish, by the way. And he was a world champion. And I think he was world champion 2 or 3 times or whatever. And he always said that to him, driving at 200 kilometers per hour was the same as us driving at 30 kilometers per hour. That for him, everything slowed down. That he could actually see all these things unfolding in front of him at a speed that we couldn't even understand. And elite referees tend to be the same. For them, the game slows down. For us, as mere mortals, the game is really, really fast. Everything's flying around. And wow, how is this possible? And I remember this is not meant to be derogatory, but I had one guy in my country who wanted to be a beach volleyball referee, and I said to him, "Well, why don't you practice refereeing volleyball? You know, it's going to help your speed of reaction." And he couldn't do it because it was too fast for him, because he hadn't trained for that. He'd gone from whatever his level had been, you know, just as a beginner, to a much higher level. He couldn't cope, but he would have been able to cope if he'd actually practiced it and stuck with it. And as I said, the higher level referees are reacting in a way that they're seeing everything, or they're looking at everything, and they're seeing everything with their brain. They're evaluating, and they're doing all sorts of things because the mechanics are just like that. All the natural things are just happening. And again, the driver analogy. If you're driving down the road, often you get to a point when you think, "Did I pass that building? Oh, right, okay. I don't remember passing that building," because everything was automatic. You were an autopilot, you know. And the same thing applies with the top level referees. They're an autopilot, and then something triggers. There's a cue. There's a clue happens, you know, and something triggers their thought process, and think, well, okay, the setter's standing in a different position from them. They've rearranged. Teams rearranged. What have they done? And you begin to think, well, okay, what's likely to happen if they've done that? Okay, you're going to get a potential positional fault here, or you're going to get a potential overpass that's going to cause this setter potentially is going to make a second ball attack because they're actually front line, but they're pretending to be back line. You know, so you're seeing all these sort of things, and the referee is way ahead of the actual action. You know, so you're seeing all of that. And as I said, that's the preparation that's taking place at the higher level. So they're anticipating because they've gone from the mechanics, the basics, the knowledge, they've acquired all that, they've gone to the next stage, which is okay, let's get rid of the problem. Now they're going to anticipate the problem and will not let it happen at all.
Well, would you think that in the lower levels, or for referee coaches that we have now, or delegates in the national levels, they have to have some kind of change of, well, maybe some education, and to be instructed to work more on the psychology of giving psychological feedback and not just technical feedback on the referees?
Yeah, you could refer to it as actually people skills.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we can teach people how to behave with other people, and how to generate natural justice, and how to be smooth refereeing, how to be smooth referees, as opposed to let's just be a robot. The rule says this, I'm going to apply this, okay, and that's what you're going to do. Whereas a little bit of common sense would allow you to actually apply the rule the way it was meant to be. You know, I mean, the example that I've given in the past was because the scorer was a little bit slow. At the moment of the service hit, the coach of Team A decides to press the buzzer for a timeout. Now, that horn goes for that. This team goes to the side. That player serves the ball and it lands in the court. Now, legitimately, the referee is correct to say the serving team wins the point. In actual fact, everybody around the court said, "What's he doing? Why is he doing that? No, please don't do it." No, you know, it would be quite okay for him to be a little bit of again, natural justice, cute, common sense, take the glasses off, wipe the glasses, and so on. I didn't see that. Okay, replay the point. Okay, time out. They cause a delay, so you get a delay, but you don't lose a point. You know, and if that happened at match point, can you imagine what would have happened? So you have to be a little bit sensitive to the actual position that the score is in the match, and how the players will react to certain things, and so on. So that's what I mean.
Okay, Avelino, you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, hi Sandy. It's always good to hear your Scottish accent.
There we go. Good.
We having here in some seminars about taking the decisions. So not in volleyball in general. In volleyball, you supported clearly and you explained clearly what they spoken, the concepts, what is behind this. And one of the questions that is really raised up is the question of anticipation.
Yes.
Okay? Anticipation, not only to know the rules, to be there and to prepare, but to have a plan. Yes. For each match, for each set, even for each point, if you go further.
For sure.
How do you think the referee can prepare himself better for having a plan for each match, for each point? It's really difficult on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, there's no substitute for experience. Okay, no substitute for it. The more we referee, the more we get good at refereeing. That's the theory anyway. And one of the basic ideas of FIVB has been they're interested in quality, not quantity. So that's why they took themselves out of making international referees and they left that to the Continental Confederations. So they want quality. And in order to get the quality, they had to effectively reduce the number of international referees to a point where they got more nominations. So international referees were to get more nominations, and therefore they got better and better and better at refereeing. That's one thing. Second thing is that if referees are directed towards certain key videos, you know, if you rather than just say go and look at the internet, there's plenty of volleyball on YouTube. Okay, that's fine, but you need to be directed towards particular things, and you do seminars like we're just doing just now. And if you had videos of, you know, backline, if you had videos of service faults, if you had videos this and this and so on, if you took each of the aspects of the game from the moment that the service the server got the ball, you know, are there things here? Pause. What do you do? You know, be able to direct them through that. So on their own is one thing, but to direct attention to various aspects is another thing. So I would probably go down the route of saying small sections, bit by bit by bit, stop it, take them through it, stop it, take them through it, stop it, and then get them as for example, if you are being a referee coach, get them to make the decisions, get them to work out the plan. You know, it's very easy for us as experienced people to say, this is what you do. It's actually better if you can say to them, tell us what you would do. Okay, what else could you do? What else could you do? What else? And you keep on asking what else until there's a master plan there and they know exactly what they would do under any circumstance.
Another question is about the new situation with COVID-19. Yes. There is no public there, and the influence of public in taking the decision was also something that was raised up, especially in obviously in soccer, where they have more statistic. And one of the remarks that came out was that the referees are doing less mistakes because they are less influenced by the public. So
could be true. Could be true.
Yeah. They statistically could prove this. soccer. We don't have in volleyball, at least the national level, we don't have this. But it's interesting to see that really public is something that influences the referees in taking their decision.
Fabulous. Well, in fact, I'm really glad you said that, because that reinforces my argument from before. So that's nice. Good. Thank you.
Sandy, I would like to ask, I think that one key point of having good terms and relationship with the coaches is communication. We were talking about that in several meetings and everything. Is it a good idea to have some talks with them prior to the match or during the warm-up protocol, to have an open channel of communication with them, allowing them to receive some, to build some trust in the referee? He's coming and he's talking to me. He's polite to show your thing.
Yeah, what you're describing, yes. However, a serious discussion on please don't allow your players to do this, and please don't do that, and please, you know, that's not a good communication style. But you know what you described. You know, you go on, you shake hands, say, okay, hi, how are you? Okay, team's okay, fine, okay. Well, good luck today. That's fine. You know, we'll do our best for you, and then you say the same thing to the other coach too. You're even-handed about both, even if one of them doesn't particularly speak the same language as you, the body language, the gestures, the facial expressions, the smile, they still communicate, and this takes away a little bit of the loneliness for the coach. I think, you know, referees referee alone, you know, coaches also coach alone a lot of the time. You know, they've got a huge responsibility. You know, at least referees don't, it's not their job. They won't get sacked if the team doesn't do well, but the coach might. This is the coach's living. So the coach really wants to do well for himself, but also as well for the team. So if the coach feels that, you know, the referee is really empathetic, has empathy with the coach, then at least that goes a long way towards making the coach understand and maybe trust the referee a little bit, you know. The coach also gets a chance to see the body language of the referee, sees that the referee is confident, the referee is experienced. You know, coaches like experienced referees. Coaches get a little bit nervous if they think that the referee is inexperienced. Okay, inexperienced referees make mistakes. Well, they make mistakes against my team. Okay. So.
Sure. Anybody else would like to ask any questions before we finish this meeting? You can unmute. I guess that that covered everything. Mm-hmm. Please feel free. We're going to upload this meeting. I'm going to upload the record to the YouTube channel, and if you would like to have a copy of the presentation, you can send an email to my email down there written. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of more meetings coming up, working on all of them, and I think it's going to be very interesting and very well. Every 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have some nice talks from different personalities, some surprises up ahead. I would like to wish you all health and a very good week, and all the best. Sandy, any last words?
No, just, well, yes, all right, okay. Again, just I thank you for all the work that you're doing, Roy, and in keeping us all interested in volleyball. We're desperate for some action, I know that. And this is one way of keeping us fresh. So I'm delighted that we have this opportunity through you to do this. So well done you.
Thank you very much. I guess you said correctly that good referees, they have the thirst, they have the will learn more, to see more, to be more, to get more involved.
They have a passion, but also they have this huge desire to test themselves against the best.
Mm-hmm.
The best referees want to referee the best teams, you know, and it's just a part of their nature. You know, that's why they are the best referees, because they test themselves on every possible occasion, you know, and they want to keep doing that. Yep.
That's the reason that I'm doing all of that. I think that you are all joining for me because it's my passion, it's my will, my thirst to learn more and more. So I guess it wouldn't be everybody here together. It would be only a dialogue between you and me. I would call you every time and we would speak like that. But then I invite all the volleyball friends, all the referee friends, the family here to learn together and to have this big discussion. Again, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Have a safe weekend. Have a safe time. Okay. All the best.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.